KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.
What a game! What a game!
Get off my lawn.
Jim Schutze with Get Off My Lawn, the weekly KNON community radio show about what's really going on in Dallas. Get Off My Lawn on KNON is the radio version of a column that I write every weekday for the Dallas Observer webpage. And you can just Google my name, Jim Schutze, S-C-H-U-T-Z-E, Get Off My Lawn, and you'll find it. You can also call me up here. I've got, my memory is only about an hour long. Thank you. There were some cords in front of our phone number here. Call me up at 972-647-1893, 972-647-1893. I want to talk about something that's been big in the news this week, which is school reform in Dallas. There was a big kind of rally and meeting at James Madison High School on MLK Boulevard this week that I attended. It was pretty rambunctious and cantankerous. The word was that the longtime and revered principal of Madison, Marion Willard, is getting sacked at the end of the year. In fact, the word is that a quarter of the principals in DISD are getting notices that they're going to be non-renewed, as they call it in education. That means fired. They're not going to get their contracts re-upped at the end of the year. And this rally included a lot of testimonials from parents and some very moving testimonials from students at Madison who are just devoted to Ms. Willard. So if she has these devoted supporters in the community, as do a lot of good principals in this system, why would they be sacked? Why would they be out? And that's what I want to talk about today. As I sat there and watched this meeting, it occurred to me that the people pushing school reform in Dallas have done a terrible job of explaining what they are up to. And therefore, school reform, the issue has been framed entirely by the people who are on the short end of the stick. That would be teachers and especially principals, the principals who are losing their jobs. It's crazy to expect people who are losing their livelihoods to be happy about it. And it's reasonable to expect that they're going to be very, very unhappy. Principals can mobilize a pretty significant constituency in the community among the parents and alumni who support them. But what's lost is what the school reform thing is really all about. The education world has come to a whole new mindset about educating kids, especially poor kids, especially minority kids, in the last 15 years. I think insidiously, without realizing it, and I'm not pointing at anybody else, I'm talking about yours truly, people I know, we have come to sort of resign ourselves to the idea that certain kids are lost. And they're lost, what we don't maybe want to look at too closely is that they are lost pretty much at birth. The numbers for the destiny of poor and especially minority kids in poor urban environments are terrible. And in recent years, child advocacy groups have begun to characterize what happens to these kids as the, quote, cradle to prison pipeline, especially for African American boys, for example, the numbers in some communities are awful. And when I walked into the rally at Madison, there was a big deal going on out in the parking lot. There were security people, including Dallas, or I guess they were DISD police personnel, and they were in a big set-to with a young man, a kid, a student, who was mad at them. There was a school board member there screaming, "You got to get this resolved. We don't want to have this on camera." She was worried because the TV crews were showing up, and I didn't stick around. I didn't want. I've seen that stuff at high schools all my life, both as a parent of a high school student and as a reporter, and so it wasn't news to me. And I got myself out of there because I didn't want to pour fuel on the fire. Interestingly, then during the meeting at Madison, parents got up and defenders of the principal and said, "There has never been a fight at Madison High School." And I'm sitting there thinking, except for the one they were doing just as we walked in tonight, that's crazy. There's a fight every day, and that's how it is, and that's not the principal's fault. It's true that in some schools they're dealing with really tough demographics. That principal got a bunch of kids from Spruce who were shifted there. School board member Ron Price told me that 5 years ago that Madison was so full of gangbangers that he was afraid to go there to appear. It was too dangerous. So there are these very, very tough issues. But here's what I wanted to get to, that what's driving the reform movement is scientific evidence gathered from years of data which show that these kids' lives are not lost. They can be turned around, especially if you get to them when they're little kids. The key years are kindergarten through third grade. You can get them to full literacy and so that they can do math just like rich kids. We know now that there are ways to do it. It doesn't necessarily cost new money. One of the essential ingredients is that you have to believe you can do it. You got to have teachers in that classroom who look at those children and think to themselves, I know, I don't care if this kid is living on the street and his mother's a prostitute and there's never been a man in his life, and this kid is tough as nails when he comes to me. I can teach that kid to read and do math by the end of third grade. And that's a complete destiny changer for these kids. I spoke last week to the Reverend Peter Johnson, who counsels ex-offenders who are trying to get jobs. And by the time that guy's been on the inside and now he's out, he's double tough. You know, these are tough guys. And most people who look at him would say, okay, there's no way to reach that guy. He's so tough, he's just a zombie. Reverend Johnson was telling me, because he does know how to reach these guys, that they sit before him and cry tears because they cannot take care of their loved ones. And one of the things Reverend Johnson talked to me about is how humiliating it is for a grown man not to be able to do any math, not to be able to add up numbers or subtract, and not to be able to read. That's not something that they don't care about. They do care about it. It's a deep wound that they carry within them every day. It's embarrassing. It's humiliating. It also means they're unemployable, that and the felony record. So what's really what's really driving the reform movement? This is not an effort just to beat up on teachers and principals because somebody's mean, because somebody thinks that would be fun. That's not it at all. It is this realization that these kids' lives do not have to be a cradle-to-prison pipeline. They can be saved. If you I mean, look, we can all figure this out. If you take that little kid, and if at the end of the 3rd grade, instead of still being functionally illiterate, if the kid is still illiterate and can't add and subtract by the end of 3rd grade, the problem is that he's toast at that point. In American education, you learn, K through 3, you learn to read. 4 on, you read to learn. If you can't read by the end of 3rd grade, that's it. You never have any idea what's going on in school. It's gibberish to you. And you're a little prisoner sitting there, bored as hell, and probably getting in trouble because you're antsy and you don't know what's going on and you hate being there. You can turn that around for these children. If the kid can read and do math at the end of 3rd grade, then all of a sudden school makes sense. There's huge evidence that if you can bring them to that point of achievement, that then the rest of their school career is very, very different. Then you have a way better chance of engaging them. So does that mean, okay, we got all these kids, and that didn't happen for them, and they're in middle school, or they're in high school, and they're illiterate, and they can't do math, so forget it. Nothing can happen for them. No. There are teachers who are just really motivated, smart, caring people who find ways to engage even those kids. It can be done. And here's the thing about the reform movement that I find in talking to people in it. Once you know that it can be done, once you see that these kids can be saved, then understandably you tend to become very passionate about it, because you're thinking to yourself, okay, if it can be done, it must be done. If it can be done and it doesn't cost extra money, then shame on us for not doing it. And all of a sudden, this attitude, and again, I'm pointing at myself, this attitude, this give up attitude, give up on these kids, becomes really, really dark. You have to go back and look at yourself and say, why did I give up on these children if I didn't have to? Why, if there's a way to turn this around, didn't I want to turn it around? There's an argument that people make that I don't especially like, just because of how I look at stuff, but it's a money argument, and it's all about how much it costs to incarcerate people. It's true, it's hugely, hugely expensive for our society to lock people up. We have way more people locked up per capita in this country than any other Western nation, and that costs all kinds of money, and then they get out and rob people and crawl in windows and stuff, and that costs money, and then you have to arrest them. And so the argument is it's way, way cheaper to teach them to read and write than it is to lock them up for the rest of their lives. That's okay. I just don't. I don't like that argument, because I think that no matter what the money is, if you know you can save the lives of children, you ought to want to do it. But I'm a preacher's kid, so I tend to see things in that light. If somebody else sees things in a dollar and cents way, that's okay. Here's the thing. We change, if we can turn around this terrible destiny for these kids who are consigned to prison almost at birth, and make them fully productive members of society, happy people having normal lives, we change our whole society. I think we all get that. We hide, a lot of people hide from how bad it is in this world for these kids. That's a whole lot of why America looks the way it does today. That's what everybody's doing, living out in the boonies. They're part of it. Understandably, we don't want to be around real scary, bad, dangerous people. I find that it's especially true for upwardly mobile black people and Hispanics. They're thinking, wait a minute, I've got this figured out. I know how to be successful. I don't want my kids anywhere near that stuff. But they at least know what the stuff is. It's a burden on their hearts because they know it's back there. We've got a lot of white people in the society who've forgotten it's even there. They think it's a TV show, something you watch on the news for entertainment, and it's not. It's a terrible, terrible cancer within our society. These kids, some of them, man, you abandon them, they get tougher and tougher and tougher, and they are dangerous. They're real dangerous. They're a time bomb. We don't. And it's a time bomb that gets worse and worse with every generation. Reverend Johnson was telling me last week that his uncle, when he was a little boy, was a builder, and he used to take him out to a job site, put a hammer in his hand, and say, "Okay, here's how you pull nails out of a board. Here's how you hit a nail," and used to teach him stuff like that. He said that now he listens, and the uncles he hears talking to their little nephews are saying, "Okay, now here's what you do when you get to prison," with this assumption that you're going to prison because of where you were born and who you are. Imagine that. If you have kids, imagine somebody saying to your child, "Now, you will be going to prison eventually, and here's what you need to do to take care of yourself." Well, we have tens of thousands of children in our own midst who are born to this destiny. And what's driving the reform movement, and what I wish they could get out and get this message out and get it in front of parents, is that doesn't have to happen. Parents whose kids are in this position, parents who can look at their own children and think, "Yeah, I need to tell him what to do when he gets to prison," need to hear that kid doesn't have to go to prison any more than anybody else's kid. There are ways to save that child, and the most obvious door, the place where we get into that life, is the schoolhouse door. And that's our chance. It may not be perfect. The schools can't. People are going to tell me everything the schools can't do with a kid who comes from a tough background. And they're right. There are a bunch of things the schools can't do, but the schools can teach that kid to read and to write and to do math, and that's a huge game changer. We're coming up on our first break in a few minutes. We're not quite there yet, and I want you to call me up if you have thoughts about this at 972-647-1893, 972-647-1893. When we come back after the break, I have a guest here you're going to want to hear, who's a gentleman. He's a teacher, lifelong educator, and he's a typical of a certain kind of teacher who looks at the world in front of him, looks at these children, cares deeply about them. The kids are in some of the kids he's taught or anybody's book are completely unreachable. In fact, I don't even want to be in the room with them. And this guy reaches them. And he's invented his own way of doing it and his own way of teaching them. And I wanted, he's going to talk some about how he does it, what his method is, and then I hope we'll talk about the business of reaching kids and the difference between hope, based on the fact that you know you can reach them, and despair, which is this attitude that, no, there's nothing you can do. When I wrote about this on the Observer website this week, all these comments, all these really mad at me, angry comments, and the most common one is, the problem is poverty. If you want to turn these kids' lives around, you got to do something about poverty. I get that poverty is a huge problem. It is really tough in this world for people to be poor. It is tough to get through that day for people, and to pull themselves out of it is even tougher. I don't slight poverty as an issue, and we do need to address all those things. But if you set it up that way, we can't do anything for this kid until we resolve poverty. What does that mean for the kid? It means you're not doing anything for that kid. It's kind of like, You're telling the kid, look, you're in the cradle to prison pipeline. We can't do anything for you until we resolve poverty. That's going to take us a couple centuries. So you and the 5 generations after you are toast. And that's wrong. We don't have to say that. We can teach that kid before we do anything about poverty. Coming back after the break with Kenneth Everett, who's going to talk to us about teaching tough kids. This is Jim Schutze with Get Off My Lawn. Stick around. We'll be back in a minute.
Jim Hightower has moved to be a part of Knon's Speak Up Saturday. Jim Hightower's segment Forum with the news and talk of South Dallas. Then at 9, the CWA presents Workers Beat with the news and talk of the unions, hosted by Gene Lance and Bonnie Mathias. At 10, the Dallas Observer presents Get Off My Lawn with Jim Schutze, bringing you the other side of Dallas news. Finishing up Speak Up Saturdays at 11 is Lambda Weekly with the news and talk of the LGBTQ community, hosted by David Taffet, Patty Fink, and Laurent Landis. Now starting at each of these shows is Jim Hightower's insightful segment at 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 a.m. each and every Saturday morning right here on the Voice of the People, Knon 89.3 FM.
Would you help a world to burn?
This is Sonny Boy Mark, and I'd like to take a minute here to tell you about over 60 minutes of great blues listening available now on KNON's Texas Blues Radio Volume 5 Blues CD. This is some great stuff, folks. 15 tracks from the Two Tones, Blues Boy Bo, Buddy Whittington, Andrea Dawson, Kirkland James, Sonny Colley, Johnny Red and the Roosters, the Chris Watson Band, the Rough Cut Blues Band, Jeff Stone with Charlie Love, David Millsap, Sir Loin and the Ass Kicking Machine, Michael J. and the Paul Bird Band, and JJ and the Detonators. The 1,000 copies we made are selling fast, and we won't reissue it. Get yours now at Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Record Town in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records and Rewind Music. The CD is available as a download at cdbaby.com. All proceeds benefit KNON, sponsored by Forever Young Records. Vinyl copies available at Forever Young Records only. For more info on Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, visit knon.org. Your ears been bending for some blues? Well, feed them the real thing with Texas Blues Radio Volume 5.
Jim Schutze back with Get Off My Lawn. We've been talking about school reform, and in a second I'm going to introduce you to Kenneth Everett, who's going to tell us how you teach kids, difficult to reach kids. Before, I want to let him talk a little bit when he gets going to explain what he does and who he is. And before we do that, excuse me, I don't want to keep Glenn on hold forever. Glenn on line 2, how are you this morning?
Good morning.
Howdy.
I've been around a while, and what I've seen since the integration of school, there has been a deliberate and systematic motion plan set in motion to destroy public education. And right now, what you're seeing is a tree that was planted 30, 40, 50 years ago. And that mindset now has become a tree. And you have, in this country, you have institutions that are set in place to destroy public education. And when you destroy public education, people don't realize there are catchphrases. When you say public, that normally means poor folks or black people. And this is one of the things that has happened. We close schools here. Mr. Schultz, you talk about catching the kids from K to 3. They close schools here K through 3.
Right. They close the schools where people are moving out of the neighborhoods.
No, that wasn't necessarily the case. That wasn't necessarily the case. You can argue that some, but that doesn't hold a true validity.
How come?
The school, I worked in one of the schools that they closed.
Right.
Okay. You could have took that school, which was not overcrowded, nor was it understaffed with students. You had enough students there to keep that school open,
How were those kids testing at the end of third grade?
Those kids, that school had been recognized.
Yeah.
Recognized, exemplary. I'm talking about the school was working.
Is it Pearl C or?
No, it was Phyllis Wheatley.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Phyllis Wheatley. I worked at Phyllis Wheatley. You went through and they allowed them to destroy those schools, and then you tell the kids, oh, but then we don't want you to go to jail. You're setting them up for failure. And when I say you, I'm talking about us as a society, as a country.
Okay,
here.
Glenn, I appreciate your call. I'm going to let you go because I want to get on to Kenneth. But the point Glenn makes is a fair one. There are people life is complicated, and there are people in the school reform movement who absolutely, he's right, are dedicated to the end of public education. But I don't believe that they are the core of it. We have to save public education from those people by making public education successful. But Glenn's not wrong. I mean, he's right that there are people who have an agenda against public education. I know some of them, and we need. I believe strongly that we need to save public education from those folks. But in order to do it, we got to make it successful. I want to introduce you to Kenneth Everett, who is the creator of No Pencil, No Paper, No Calculator. And Kenneth, could you explain what that is? What do you mean?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me here to be able to discuss some of the things that I'm doing to make a difference with the children. No pencil, no paper, no calculator. I've been blessed to have some concepts that have never been seen before. And if you notice, a lot of kids, they end up coming out of schools with no backpack, no pencil. You're talking about a lot of inner city schools and suburb schools also. No pencil, no backpack. They're leaving school. So we've got to be able to reach these children. We just can't say, oh, he doesn't have any pencil. He doesn't have a pencil. He doesn't pay. He's not going to do it.
He doesn't have an iPad. He doesn't have an iPad.
No.
Yeah, all that stuff.
No.
Okay.
See, my philosophy has always been, let me write it on your brain before you write it on your paper. So if you take that child that comes in, no pencil, no paper, and he's trying to give you an excuse why he's not going to do any work, it's okay, no problem. Okay, because I want you to just pay attention. And that way I can actually do some things for you to motivate you. Because if we can start to motivate these children, then we can educate them. And that's what my no pencil, no paper approach is about, is taking children and giving them a no pencil, no paper approach with some concepts that can be taught to a third or fourth grader.
And some of those kids are sitting there looking at you hard-eyed. I hate you. I hate being here. I hate all this. So what do you do?
well, first of all, the one thing that I do is I try to bring value to an education. So if you can bring that value, if you can show that kid how valuable that education is to him or her, then you can start to reach them. And so you have to, when you talk about inner city schools, you have to be more than a teacher. You have to be a motivator. Mm-hmm. And so motivating that child, finding ways, well, first of all, Jim, my degree is in math and psychology. Mm-hmm. So I've got the upper hand over that child from the start with the schooling that I've gotten with the psychology. So I'm trying to get into that kid's head to get him to understand the value of an education.
And you believe in your heart of hearts that you can?
Oh, without a doubt. I've taken students that have failed the tax test 4 and 5 times. And I come in and I show them 1 or 2 concepts that they can see and they can believe and they can apply to those problems that they have to be tested on and get it right without pencil and paper. Well, I've got them because I've given them hope.
When you say show them, what do you mean? Show them the concept. Show them how?
Well, see, people can visually see something. If I can visually see it, I can write it on your brain. It's like you go to a movie and you can see the scenes. You can remember the scenes. Well, if you the person that reads it, they may be able to explain to you right away what they saw, what they read. But that person that saw it, oh, I remember this happened, that happened. Oh, so what I do is I train eyes in my math teaching. I train eyes, and because I'm able to train the eyes, I'm actually writing it on their brain.
Give me an example. We don't want to get too far into math, because one of the things that happens to people if they're no good at math and they have a low self-concept, it leads to a life of journalism, which is why I'm here. So I don't want to go too far into the math, but tell me, what's an example of something you can picture out?
Okay, visually, you walk on the floor every day. That's a horizontal line.
Right. A
horizontal line has a slope of 0. Well, Jim, when was the last time you walked up the wall?
It's been a while.
That's a vertical line.
Yeah.
It's undefined. How old do you have to be to know that when you walk on the floor, it's a horizontal line? You know, how old do you have to be to know that you can't walk up a wall?
Right.
So you can start teaching that, and that's an algebra, something that they need to know in algebra that they're going to be tested over. Okay.
What is the algebra concept that you're getting them to?
well, one of the things that I try to do, Jim, is that looking at all the tests that the kids are taking, and we're teaching to a test. You don't teach to a test. You teach the concept. Okay, let me give you a prime example. You know, no matter what country you're in, you have to know that the equation of a line is y equals mx plus b.
Okay.
Well, if you want that kid to totally understand, you start with a point. Then you take another point. So now you draw a line.
Right.
It takes 2 points to make a line. How old do you have to be to know that 2 points, you can connect them and you draw and you have a line?
Right.
Okay. That line has an equation, but you don't forget to tell that individual that a line is made up of nothing but points that are touching together. So now all of a sudden the kid has the equation of a line being y equals mx plus b. So now you're driving down the street with your child. You see a telephone pole. Son, does that telephone pole has an equation? Oh, yeah, Dad, it does. It's y equal mx plus b. See, so you start at a point and you build, so you're building a foundation. And that's what I do. I start with a foundation and I build on that foundation.
What age group kids?
What I'm trying to do, Jim, is that I know that you can take a 3rd grader, a 4th grader, and you can begin to teach them Algebra 1 concepts and also Algebra 2 concepts, because it's a building process. And I have created a book which is called Knowledge Plus Skills Concept Book. And I've taken my over 20-something years and I put these concepts in a book, so that if a parent wants to teach his or her child at home, or even when the child comes home, if you go over these concepts, you can build that foundation so that your child can eventually take the pre-AP classes.
But what if you got the kid who's already in middle school and he didn't get any of that?
Oh, that's why it's so simple. Because of the fact in order for you to take that kid that is struggling, you've got to start with a foundation. You got to build on something. It's like if you're going to build a building, you build that foundation. You make sure that foundation, if you want to go up a lot of stories for the building, you got to go deep. So what we have to do is we have to start early. If you want to go deep with building a foundation with a child, you have to start early. And so, but if you miss them and you start late, you still have the concepts that I've come up with to make it easy for your child to learn.
Okay, let's say we're in middle school.
Okay.
And you're starting late. And let's say you got a room full of gangbangers.
Okay.
Who are giving you that look.
I've had that.
What do you do?
well, first of all, Jim, the thing that I did was I told them that, hey, I can't force you out of a gang. But one thing I can do is I can put something in your brain that if you decide to get out of the gang, then there's a way for you to eventually, if you have a family, to take care of your family. See, you're giving them hope, you know, to take care of your family, to take care of yourself. I say, all I need you to do is pay attention. You have no pencil, no paper, no problem. I did that for 11 years ago, over 11 years, when I was teaching at a school where all the gangbangers wanted to be in my class. Because they
wanted to be in your
class. They wanted to be in class. The thing that they were saying is that you need to be in Mr. Everett's class because he's not going to get angry at you because you're in a gang. He's going to teach to you anyway. See, sometimes we write children off, and you can't ever write anyone out because you never know when they're going to change.
So you're not writing them off. You're linking it up with what this stuff is worth. You're telling them this is how you lead a life later.
Right.
You're giving them a motivation. And you're able to reach them without being all judgmental about them.
Right. You know, it's about attitude. Well, first of all, as a teacher, I have to have the right attitude. I'm smiling all the time.
Right.
You know, I give you a prime example. I was teaching at school, and first time I was teaching, the girl came in and cursed me out. Well, most teachers would have wrote that student up. You know, you can't come in and curse me out. You know, I told her, I apologized in front of the whole class. I said, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know what I did to you, but I'm sorry. In front of the class, and so all the kids says, you didn't do anything to her. I tell you what the young lady did, Jim. At the end of the class, she came up to me crying, apologizing, saying she was sorry. Because I knew that something else had to be going on with that child to attack me, and I hadn't done anything to her.
So you're not mad at that kid?
No.
You're not mad at those kids?
Nah.
And you don't look at them and think, you kids are a bunch of losers, and I'm stuck with you because I didn't get to teach in college. Or
It's attitude. I have to look at the fact that my attitude can change their attitude.
Why do you want to do it?
I'll tell you why. Because I understand that I have two daughters. One's 26 and one's 19. I've got to make an impact on other people's lives because of the fact that I want the Lord to take care of my children. So my thing is that if I go and help someone else's child, then that may be me helping my own child, because that could be that individual that maybe my daughter runs into. So I'm about changing other people's children because of the fact that I know that my daughters are out there in the world and I can't be with them. So I have to make an impact myself on younger people.
Well, we're going to pause for 1 second. We've had Erica hanging on line 3. Erica, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there.
What's up?
That's very touching what he had said. Because while I was growing up, I had to pretty much teach myself. Because my dad's from over the border. But he has his green card.
Yeah.
My mom, she's from Laredo, and back in the day they didn't really care if you didn't go to school like truancy.
Yeah.
And so she really didn't go to school, so it hurts me. It makes me cry because sometimes when she needs help spelling a word like need, it just makes me cry because it's such an easy word. How can you not know how to spell that? But she didn't get taught that, so I had to pretty much teach myself, learn from my sister, and pretty much by what I see.
How'd you do it? How'd you teach yourself?
Getting hurt, so you gotta fall. I guess you just gotta.
But you taught yourself.
Yeah, if you think of everything, it's pretty much common sense. Everything's basically right there thrown in your face. Common sense. How would you do that? Step by step by step.
Yeah. When Mr. Everett and I first met and we talked about this, I said that a lot of teaching that I remember was put it on the blackboard. There's the equation. Get it or not, kid. It's kind of, there it is.
People have different ways of doing the way they think it's a good idea to put it in people's heads. Kind of, I guess, like manipulating, I guess.
Right.
But, everybody has different, good ways that, stick in your head, and some ways you can't get it. And it's just like, what is that there for? What do I use that for?
Erica, I listen, I thank you for calling. I'm going to let you go at this point but I want to, I guess I want to go to break. I hear the break coming up, and we'll be back after this break with Get Off My Lawn. Thank you for calling.
If it's time to get rid of your old gas guzzler, the Knon Vehicle Donation Program can help. There is still a market for those old vehicles, and if you donate it, you are helping to support the quality programming here on KNON. Just call 877-KNON-AUTO or go online to knon.org. We'll take care of everything from pickup to tax paperwork. That's 877-KNON-AUTO.
Kiki Friedman's Man in Black Tequila presents the 4th annual Knon Fort Worth Blues Fest this Sunday, March 24th at the Live Oak Music Hall in Fort Worth. This year's lineup stars Holland K. Smith with special guests Buddy Whittington, Larry Lampkin, Trainwreck featuring Reverend K.M. Williams, Washboard Jackson, and Jeff Stone, the Michael Lee Band, Robert Johnson Soul from Austin, Jackie Donlow, and Kirkland James. Doors open at 3 and the music starts right away. The event will be hosted by Blue Lisa. There will be food available courtesy of the Live Oak Music Hall. We'll be raffling off a custom Knon guitar from Kona Guitars. Tickets are on sale now at knon.org, Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, and Recordtown in Fort Worth. The beautiful Live Oak Music Hall is located at 1311 Lipscomb Avenue in Fort Worth and is a non-smoking venue. That's the 4th annual Knon Fort Worth Blues Fest starring Holland K. Smith with special guest Buddy Whittington, Larry Lampkin, Trainwreck featuring Reverend K.M. Williams, Washboard Jackson, and Jeff Stone, the Michael Lee Band, Robert Johnson Soul from Austin, Jackie Donlow, and Kirkland James this Sunday, March 24th at the Live Oak Music Hall in Fort Worth. Sponsored by Kinky Friedman's Man in Black Tequila. Available now.
It's going wrong.
Hey, babes, take one.
Jim Schutze back with Get Off My Lawn. We're talking about kids and how to teach them. Our guest is Kenneth Everett, the creator of No Pencil, No Paper, No Calculator. And he's invented ways of reaching hard to reach kids and teaching them math concepts that they need. Mr. Everett, when you're talking to a young student, let's say a young man out on the street, and he's all tough and everything, and he doesn't care, what's really in that kid's heart in your experience in terms of not being able to do math? What effect does it have on that kid in life not to be able to do any math?
Well, what happens is he's putting himself in a box. And see, I'm thinking back, Mr. Schutze, when I had some kids that were in the gang, and I told a young man, I said, if you don't let me teach you, then you're limiting yourself. What's going to happen if you have a son, and that son wants you to buy him something, and you can't get it because you don't have the funds to do that? I say, how is that going to make you feel? So you have to get them to start thinking a little bit further than right now.
When we spoke before, when we first met, though, you talked about how tough it is to, in your words, break them down when they come in that room, and then they go back out in the hall.
It's an ongoing thing, and you know I feel for a lot of the teachers that it starts to affect them, because you know you think you've gotten to that child, and then he comes back the next day and he's got that same attitude. Well, the thing is that your attitude has to always stay where it needs to be, and that's the thing that I've been able to master is not letting that child affects the way I treat that child. I told a child just about 2 weeks ago, he finally decided he wanted to learn. But he'd been giving me a hard time. Right. But if I had the wrong attitude, I said, man, you wasted too much of my time. I ain't got time to teach you. Yeah. But I told him, I turned to him and I said, hey, I'm so glad that your attitude has changed. I said, man, I'll help you as much as I can. If you're dealing with those tough-to-reach kids, and they go out, back out in the hall, back out on the street, and they're going to react to that reality, and that's why they're coming back in tough, right? Right. They've been dealing with that reality, but how long can you do that as the teacher and keep your heart open and your hopes up? I think the biggest plus is you get a break on Friday. Friday comes around, spring break comes around. But it's hard. It's really, really hard because of the fact that you can find your attitude starting to change toward a child. This is another issue I've had with some of the school reformers. Sometimes it just depends on which ones you're talking to. They are very quick to leap to the assumption that the way to take care of burned out teachers is to fire them. And there was a whole, when George W. Bush was governor, he had this lady who worked on education issues for him, whose name was Hunter. I can't remember her first name, but she was from Houston. And she had a whole bunch of evidence to argue that that's absolutely not true. It's the wrong way to go, that you can
retrain teachers, and you can reach them. You got to open those teachers back up just the way you're opening up the students, right?
Yeah, you're right, Mr. Schutze, because, you know, you take the experience that a teacher gets over a period of years. You can't find that in a first year teacher. You know, that experience. That's like trying to find a doctor, and this doctor's been doing it for 30 years. Yeah. And you're going to think that a first year doctor is going to have the same skills as that 30-year doctor. Yeah. That's not going to happen. Right. So you have to try to keep those teachers around, because they have ways of reaching the children. Right. And think about this, Mr. Schutze. If we're talking about math, and a young first year teacher comes in, and it's not feeling successful, and you've let that experienced teacher go, that young teacher is going to say, I don't have to deal with this. Right. I can go get me another job.
Right. Let me pause. We've got Ms. Collins on line 4, I hope. Ms. Collins, are you still patiently there waiting for us?
Yes, I am.
Please, welcome to the show. What's up today, Ms. Collins?
I'm a teacher, and I understand what he's saying. The problem is, I'm a second grade teacher. Right. When they got rid of a whole bunch of teachers back in 2009 and started this whole mess, I understand getting to the older kids. Yeah. But I've got kids in this class. We've got 30 second graders that are maybe 8 years old. Right. They're on medication. They have to take medication at school. They live in the Fort Worth shelter. They have parents. One parent's in prison, and the other parent is living in a shelter, walking the streets during the day while their kids at school. Right. And they go home. They don't get any support at home. They fight with the kids in the shelter, and it's impossible to reach all those kids on all kinds of different medications and tell them to be positive. It's good, you know. It's a little hard to learn this for them. A lot of them just can't read. Their medication has a lot to do with it.
Well, Ms. Collins, I tell me if I'm reading something into this, but I hear in your voice a huge sadness for these children, and you're looking in the face of enormous misery, and what can be worse than the misery of children? But let me ask, Mr. Everett, what about the word impossible? Is it?
You know, I'm listening to you, and I feel your hurt, because I've had some kids on that high school level like that. You know, the thing that I can say for you is that you may be the only positive person in that child's life. So you have to try to maintain that attitude that they can see something positive. You're not going to be able to reach them all, but it may be one or two that you can really affect. And I just think that for you just have to try to maintain your positive attitude to each child. I know you're doing that, and I know it's tough, but it's a tough situation.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In my voice, at school, okay, when I was growing up, school was my shelter. And what I'm upset about is that these kids can't get a break. Right. And yes, we are the only positive one in their life. And they come in and they hug us, and they want to eat lunch with us, you know. Yeah. But it's really hard for them to concentrate in a classroom that has so many kids with so many different problems, even though there's 2 teachers in my class.
You know, when we were off here, Mr. Everett and I were talking about the burden on the adult or anybody in a situation who's just surrounded by tragedy and sadness. Right. And if you want to see a great example of how people kind of toughen themselves up and close themselves up, cops are a good example. There's a tough job. There's where you're looking at the worst of it every day, and you have to protect yourself. All this stuff, there's all this training to make cops more sensitive, and I sometimes think, well, you go out and do that job and see how sensitive you are after a while. But Mr. Everett was saying that there may be a limit on the amount of time. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. a limit on the amount of time that you can be there, right?
Yeah, there is.
Really, then my thing is psychology and math. You can only stay in a negative environment for so long, and then it starts to affect you.
Yeah, unless you would have to be superhuman not to have it get to you. But what do you tell the teacher who's just up to here with it?
It's not that we're up to here with it, It's that the funds are not being put where they need to be put for these children.
Mm-hmm.
They need more.
Right.
And I believe we could make it more fun for them if we had more one-on-one or just a little fewer kids in the classroom.
And that's another very important point. And Miss Collins, I'm going to let you go so we can move on to another point. Thanks for calling. But she raises a very important point about funds. We've seen this whole Tea Party initiative in Texas to gut school funding. And now this year they're saying they're going to put it back. But that's a factor. That's not to be written off. You can't... how can you, if you're sincere about wanting to reform the schools, how can you do that when you gut the funding? I think that goes back to what one of the earlier callers said, is that there are some people whose agenda is not to reform the schools, it's to kill them. There's no denying that. I think we still have Carla on line one. Carla, are you still there? Yes, Carla.
Yes, I'm still here. I want to make this very point, that we're missing the bigger issue that is happening here around the country. Earlier this morning at 7, Reverend Barnett was talking about them putting up the Confederacy down in Palestine.
Right.
They want to put a port there. What has happened is, since emancipation, the powers that be have never forgiven the fact that the black man has been freed in this country. The powers that be, if you remember in history, the railroads, the mining companies, and the roads in each of the states were built by chain gang prisoners.
Right.
For free labor. Prison system is...
I understand.
And what I'm saying is, these children are being funneled into this business.
Yes.
This is the way for them to have...
And we need to funnel them out. We need to stop that, and I agree. And I thank you for your call. I'm going to go to line 3, where I'm hoping we still have Robert Medrano on the line. Is this former trustee Medrano?
Yes, it is, Jim.
Sir, how are you?
Fine. Let me see. I know you're running out of time. About 5 more minutes, but
sure.
Let me. I think you can put the whole thing in perspective from cradle to prison.
Let me make sure that listeners understand that this is Robert Medrano on the line, who is a former DISD trustee himself. Please go ahead.
Yes. I got elected back in 1974 as a result of single-member district with when we came in, Catherine Gilliam, Dr. Conrad, 3 minorities, and our vote was always, for 14 years, 6-3, 6-3. The media would portray us as down racial lines. They will vote along down racial lines.
Right.
It was the truth. It was the truth.
Right.
Then DCA came. Former superintendent Linus Ride and the former superintendent all said Dallas will go totally minority now as a result of the tool of desegregation.
Mm-hmm.
Not books, not scholastics, but as a bus, we will disrupt the whole public education system.
Right.
Now here we come with, I want to become an attorney, but what is my product? If I want to become a criminal attorney, I need criminals. If I'm a judge, I want to sentence criminals. If I want to build a prison, I need criminals.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to be a warden, it's a system that's designed. But what is the product that's going to go in there? What is that product that's going to go in? Then let's create the drug dealer, the crime. Send drugs into the community, and you will always get that business, as the lady pointed out, the railroad. Now, what is the solution? Now, they're fixing to appropriate more money into so-called public education, but a percentage of there is to build more charter schools. So now, if Jim Schutze wants to build a charter school solely for 2nd and 3rd graders, he can.
Mm-hmm.
He can submit an application, and Jim Schutze can build a new charter school. Robert Medrano wants to build a charter school for 5th and 6th graders, yes. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. What about the sports? Who dominates the sports? Minority. Take football away from public education system. Take instruments away from public education system. All that, ballet, dancing, choir, all that, take away the culture, the music away, and just give it to reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's the first concept. If you do that, then now we're right back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, those three things. And what system are we going to have? What will happen to us after that if we begin to learn how to read, write, arithmetic? Do we now start developing a new product? The president, the same head of household, as the teacher pointed out. The teacher did point that out. And that's what the problem is, one head of household. Right. I have no other comment to say, but, I know you're running out of time, but I'll get you next Saturday.
Listen, thank you very much for calling in. And former trustee Medrano is describing a very real picture, and it is this cradle to prison pipeline. The other end of it is what happens to these young people when they come out. A lot of them take vocational training in prison. I've talked to ministers in the community who talk about how these kids will come out and say, Pastor, I am never going back there. I took this training in prison, and now I'm going to go get this job, and I'm going to lead a good life. And what does that kid discover in the first year out? He's not getting any job. It doesn't matter what training he had. He's not getting any job. And so and yet there's that corner out there where he can go sell drugs and make more in an afternoon than he'd make working all week anyway. So you do have this system of incentives. I don't happen to believe that it's stacked up exactly on purpose, but it does reflect an attitude that some people's lives are worth less than other people's lives. Right. And we're coming up to the end, and we've gotten into the sadder side of this picture. But Mr. Everett, what's the good side? What have you tell me some experiences you've had about turning kids around?
I have so many, but I'm just going to take one case. Had a young man that I've been tutoring, and that young man had been struggling for math, and I taught him some of my concepts, and those concepts helped him improve his SAT score. Had a fifth grader that was struggling with math, changed his attitude, made it positive for him, and just last week found out that he had made like a 98 for his midterm test.
Really?
Yeah. So, really? I just know that we have to do what we can do at this particular time. That's what I've taken on myself, is that there are so many things going wrong, but if I have to do what I can do, and what I can do is make a difference in a child's life.
In your experience, what happens for that kid, that fifth grader, who's been struggling, and he's been getting nothing but bad, feedback? What happens to him when he gets that 98?
Oh, attitude change. Conversation goes up. Talking to you, eyes looking at you. Just whole attitude changes.
A different little man.
Dad told me, said he's talking more. Because you got to understand, if you don't know something, you shy away, and so when you start to shy away, you don't ask questions because you don't know if you're going to ask a question that is not going to make you seem dumb.
Right, and no one kid wants to seem dumb.
Right, and
so a lot of that attitude is in fact a shying away from life.
And that's why with my no pencil, no paper approach, which my website is nopencilnopaper.com, is to take these individuals and change attitudes and a group, because I have a concept book that every page in that book is a PowerPoint. Now we're talking about not having to deal with a kid that maybe even struggles to write, and so he's embarrassed and he doesn't want to write anything down.
Right. I don't want to get out of here. We're running out of time. Some people are going to want to find out more about your stuff, so let's make sure people know how to find you. Give them the website again, or any other contact.
Okay, you can go to nopencilnopaper.com, and my email address is GITA, which stands for God is the Answer. So it's GITA at nopencilnopaper.com.
All one word. And I want to thank you very much for coming on. It's great to hear, and this whole debate gets so depressing at times. It's great to hear a voice of hope and somebody who's been out there looking at it and doing it. Thank you for being here. I hear that that whistling music, which means the big hook. They're pulling me out of here for the real show that comes on next. This is Jim Schutze with Get Off My Lawn. We'll see you here again next week. Thanks for listening.
KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas and Fort Worth, the voice of the people.
Business owners, tell KNON's listeners about your business. You can put your business or event on KNON. KNON currently has space available to run announcements for you. Tell KNON's listeners about your goods, services, nightclub, concert, or event. Help keep the voice of the people on the air while putting your information on the air. KNON's been named the #1 radio station in Dallas by both the Dallas Observer and D Magazine. Put your business with Dallas's #1 station. Call now for more information at 214-828-9500, extension 227, or extension 233. For more information, go to KNON.org and click on the Run Spots on KNON page. It's a great way for your business to support community radio while letting more people know about you.